Shattered reflections. Natalia Reeves stood before the full-length mirror in her bridal suite, barely recognizing the woman staring back. The designer gown, with its intricate beadwork and flowing train, should have made her feel beautiful. Instead, she felt like an imposter wearing someone else's dream. 20 minutes. "Ms. Reeves?" the wedding coordinator called through the door. She closed her eyes, inhaling the scent of fresh roses that filled the room. This wasn't how she had imagined her wedding day as a young girl. Back then, she'd dreamed of marrying for love, not entering a marriage of convenience with a man she barely knew. But choices became limited when you were 32 with a mountain of debt from a failed business. A business your ex-partner had systematically sabotaged before disappearing with what little savings you had left. "You're making the right decision," her friend Olivia had assured her last night. "Gabriel Mercer might be worth billions, but everyone says he's decent. Unlike that snake Richard." The mention of Richard's name still made her stomach clench. 3 years together, and all he'd left her with was self-doubt and the constant fear of not being enough. The soft knock at the door pulled Natalia from her thoughts. "Come in," she called, expecting the coordinator again. Instead, her soon-to-be mother-in-law, Josephine Mercer, entered with a small velvet box. "I thought you might want to wear these," the elegant older woman said, opening the box to reveal a pair of sapphire earrings. "They were my grandmother's. Something borrowed and blue in one." Natalia hesitated. "They're beautiful, but—" "No pressure," Josephine said, placing the box on the vanity. "Gabriel mentioned you prefer simple jewelry." The fact that Gabriel had noticed and remembered such a detail surprised her. They'd only met 6 times since the arrangement was proposed by their families 3 months ago. "Thank you," Natalia said softly. Josephine studied her for a moment. "You know, my son isn't like most men in his position. The business world sees his success. I see the boy who rescued injured birds and fixed broken things." She smiled. "Perhaps that's why he was drawn to this arrangement. He has always been good at seeing value where others don't." The words stung, even though Natalia knew Josephine hadn't meant them cruelly. Was that how Gabriel saw her? As something broken to fix? After Josephine left, Natalia picked up the earrings, their blue stones catching the light. She thought about the man waiting at the altar, a stranger who would soon be her husband. Gabriel Mercer, brilliant businessman, philanthropist, and by all accounts, genuinely kind. But Richard had seemed kind too. At first, as she fastened the borrowed earrings, Natalia made a silent promise to herself. This time would be different. This time she would keep her heart locked safely away. This was a business arrangement after all, security and stability, in exchange for being the perfect corporate wife. What Gabriel Mercer couldn't possibly know was that the woman he was marrying today was merely a shell of who she once had been, and Natalia intended to keep it that way. Patient hands. The Mercer estate sprawled across 30 acres of manicured gardens and old-growth forest, a testament to generations of wealth. As their limousine pulled through the wrought iron gates after the reception, Natalia felt her anxiety spike. This palatial home would now be hers too, at least on paper. Gabriel sat beside her, his profile illuminated by passing landscape lights. Throughout the day, he'd been nothing but courteous, guiding her through introductions to business associates and family friends without ever rushing her or making her feel inadequate. Now, in the privacy of the car, she braced herself for the inevitable change in his demeanor. "Would you like a tour tonight, or would you prefer to rest?" Gabriel asked as the car stopped at the front entrance. The flight and ceremony must have been exhausting. His consideration caught her off guard. Perhaps tomorrow would be better." "Of course." His smile reached his eyes, warm brown eyes that didn't seem to hide ulterior motives. A housekeeper named Marisol showed Natalia to her suite. Not their suite, but her own private space adjacent to Gabriel's rooms. The connecting door remained closed. "Mr. Mercer had your things unpacked while we were at the reception," Marisol explained, gesturing to the walk-in closet where Natalia's modest wardrobe looked lost among the empty shelves. "He mentioned you might want to go shopping soon to make the space feel more like home." After Marisol left, Natalia stood in the center of the luxurious bedroom, running her fingers over the silk bedspread. The tension in her shoulders refused to release. Any moment now, Gabriel would come through that connecting door with expectations. After all, this was their wedding night. She changed into a simple nightgown, heart hammering as she heard movement in the adjacent room. A gentle knock made her jump. "Natalia?" Gabriel's voice came through the door. "May I come in for a moment?" She wrapped herself in a robe before answering. "Yes." Gabriel entered, already changed into lounge pants and a t-shirt. He carried a small tray with 2 mugs and a plate of shortbread cookies. "I thought you might like some chamomile tea," he said, setting the tray on a small table by the window. "It helps me sleep when I'm in unfamiliar surroundings." Natalia watched him warily. "Thank you." Gabriel sat in one of the armchairs and gestured to the other. "Join me?" Cautiously, she perched on the edge of the seat. The steam from the tea carried a soothing fragrance of honey and herbs. "I wanted to thank you," Gabriel said after a moment. "For what?" "For agreeing to this arrangement." He looked down at his mug. "I know it's not conventional, but with the company going public next quarter and the board's pressure—" He trailed off. "That sounds terribly cold, doesn't it?" Natalia found herself smiling slightly at his candor. "No colder than my reasons for accepting." Gabriel nodded, understanding in his eyes. "I want you to know something, Natalia. I've had relationships before, some serious, some not, but I've never been good at the emotional aspects. I'm told I work too much, focus too intensely." He met her gaze. "But I do believe in respect, in kindness, in creating spaces where people feel safe." The sincerity in his voice made something in her chest tighten. "You don't know me," she said softly. "I'd like to, though, at whatever pace feels right." He set his mug down. "You don't have to give me anything tonight or any night you don't wish to. Just let me prove that you are safe here." The echo of his words from the story outline struck her. This wasn't a demand or a line. It was a promise. Gabriel stood, taking his mug with him. "The East Wing has the best sunrise views. Marisol can show you to the breakfast nook in the morning, or you can have breakfast here if you prefer." He moved toward the door. "Good night, Natalia." "Gabriel," she called just as he reached the threshold. When he turned, she found herself saying, "Thank you for the tea." He nodded, a gentle smile playing at his lips before he closed the door behind him. That night, Natalia slept in the massive bed alone, the door between their rooms remaining closed. And for the first time in months, her sleep was dreamless and deep. Breathing room 3 weeks into their marriage, Natalia found herself standing before an unexpected gift. A sunlit studio on the estate's eastern side, windows stretching from floor to ceiling overlooking the gardens. "It's been empty for years," Gabriel explained, watching her reaction carefully. "My mother used it for painting before she became too busy with foundation work." Natalia circled the space, fingers trailing over the drafting table Gabriel had installed. Brand new architectural supplies, imported pencils, precision tools, and top-of-the-line software waited untouched. "How did you know?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I did my research before proposing our arrangement," Gabriel admitted. "Your undergraduate degree was in architectural design before you switched to business for your master's." "What?" Gabriel didn't say what he didn't need to. Say was that her ex-partner had, systematically discouraged her creative pursuits, calling them impractical distractions. Richard's voice still echoed in her head. "Nobody makes money drawing pretty buildings. Nat, stick to what you're good at." "I thought perhaps you might want to explore it again," Gabriel continued when she remained silent. "No pressure. The space is yours regardless." That afternoon, after Gabriel left for his office downtown, Natalia returned to the studio. She stood before the blank sheets for nearly an hour before finally picking up a pencil. The first lines were hesitant, uncertain. By evening, she had filled 3 pages with rough sketches, imperfect but exhilarating. Days passed into weeks. Natalia established a routine, taking breakfast with Gabriel when his schedule allowed, then retreating to her studio while he attended to business matters. Their evenings were spent in comfortable conversation over dinner, sometimes followed by walks through the gardens or quiet reading in the library. They developed a rhythm of coexistence that felt surprisingly natural. Gabriel never pushed for more intimacy than she offered, seeming content with their growing friendship. One rainy afternoon in October, nearly 2 months into their arrangement, Gabriel knocked on the studio door. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "There's an architectural exhibition downtown tonight featuring sustainable urban designs. My attendance was requested as a potential investor. Would you consider accompanying me?" It would be their first public appearance together since the wedding. Natalia's immediate instinct was to decline. Public scrutiny still made her uncomfortable. But the subject matter? "I'd like that," she heard herself say. That evening, as they walked through the exhibition, Natalia found herself animated in a way Gabriel had never witnessed. She spoke passionately about cantilevers and natural light integration, about how certain designs honored their environmental context while others fought against it. Gabriel listened intently, asking questions that revealed genuine interest rather than polite obligation. "You're remarkable when you talk about architecture," he observed as they waited for the valet. "Your entire being lights up." Natalia felt her cheeks warm. "It was my first love. Why did you abandon it?" The question wasn't accusatory, merely curious, but Natalia felt old defenses rising. It wasn't practical. Gabriel studied her face. "Richard's assessment, I presume?" The direct mention of her ex startled her. They had never discussed her previous relationship explicitly, though Gabriel clearly knew the broad strokes. "He wasn't entirely wrong," she said stiffly. "My designs were always more theoretical than marketable." "May I see them sometime?" Gabriel asked. "Your theoretical designs?" The request was so unexpected that Natalia found herself nodding before she could overthink it. Later that week, she shyly shared her portfolio, old sketches and digital renderings she'd saved despite Richard's dismissal. Gabriel examined each one thoughtfully. "These are extraordinary, Natalia," he said finally, "particularly this series on adaptive reuse of industrial spaces." "You don't have to say that." "I never say things I don't mean," Gabriel replied, his gaze steady. "It's bad for business and worse for relationships." That night, as they stood in the hallway between their rooms, Natalia surprised herself by rising on her toes and brushing her lips against Gabriel's cheek, their first physical contact initiated by her. "Thank you," she whispered, "for seeing something worth saving in forgotten things." The tenderness in Gabriel's eyes as she pulled away made her heart flutter in a way that was both terrifying and wonderful. Storm shadows, the morning began with unusual promise. Natalia woke to find an email from Vertigo Designs, a boutique architectural firm responding to the portfolio she'd tentatively submitted the previous week. They wanted to meet with her about a possible consulting position, something part-time that would allow her to test her professional wings again. She was contemplating how to share the news with Gabriel when Marisol appeared at the studio door, her normally composed face tense with concern. "Mrs. Mercer, there's someone at the gate demanding to see you, a Mr. Richard Donovan. Security has denied him entry, but he's becoming quite insistent." The pencil in Natalia's hand snapped. "Richard, after nearly a year of silence. He's claiming you have property of his," Marisol continued. "Something about design files and client contacts." Natalia's throat constricted. The business they'd built together, the one he'd systematically drained before disappearing, had been legally dissolved months ago. She'd signed away her rights to the client list as part of their settlement, just to be free of him. "Tell them I won't see him," Natalia managed. "He has no reason to be here." But Richard's appearance shattered the fragile peace she'd been building. Throughout the day, her phone buzzed with messages from unknown numbers, Richard using burner phones to bypass her blocks. The texts ranged from pleading to accusatory to vaguely threatening. "I know you took backup files before you left. The Bancroft project was my client. You had no right. Your billionaire husband can't protect you from legal action." By evening, Natalia was a bundle of frayed nerves. She canceled dinner with Gabriel, claiming a headache. Instead, she paced her suite, jumping at shadows and phantom notifications. The gentle knock on her door nearly made her scream. "Natalia!" Gabriel's voice was soft with concern. "May I come in?" She opened the door reluctantly. Gabriel took one look at her face and his expression darkened. "What's happened?" She tried to deflect, but the words tangled in her throat. Finally, she handed him her phone with Richard's messages displayed. Gabriel read them silently, his jaw tightening. "How long has this been going on?" "Just today. He showed up at the gate this morning." "Why didn't you tell me?" The question wasn't accusatory, but Natalia felt defensive instincts flaring. "I've handled Richard for years. I don't need protection?" Gabriel finished when she faltered. Everyone deserves protection from harassment. Natalia, the simple statement, so different from Richard's, sneering assertions that she was overreacting to normal business disagreements, made something inside her crumble. "He'll eventually get bored and go away," she said. Not entirely believing it herself, Gabriel studied her face. "There's something specific he wants, isn't there? These messages are too pointed." Natalia hesitated, then moved to her laptop. After entering several passwords, she pulled up a hidden folder. "Before everything fell apart, I backed up all our design files and correspondence." She swallowed hard. "Including emails where Richard redirected client payments to his personal accounts instead of our business account. Where he badmouthed my work to clients while presenting it as his own." Understanding dawned in Gabriel's eyes. "Evidence of fraud. I never planned to use it. I just wanted to be free of him, even if it meant walking away with nothing." Her voice shook. "But now he's worried about the Bancroft development. It's moving forward with designs he claimed were his, but were actually mine." Gabriel sat beside her on the edge of the bed, careful to maintain a respectful distance despite their proximity. "You have options, Natalia. Legal options that don't involve either surrendering to his demands or living in fear." "I can't afford another legal battle with him," she whispered. "Last time drained everything I had." "You're not alone anymore," Gabriel said simply. That night, for the first time, Natalia asked Gabriel to stay. Not for intimacy, but because the thought of being alone with her fears was unbearable. He sat in the armchair by her window, working quietly on his laptop while she tried to sleep. His presence across the room, steady, undemanding, eventually allowed her racing heart to slow. Just before dawn, Natalia woke to find Gabriel still there. His tall frame somehow folded comfortably in the chair, head tilted back in sleep. Watching him, this man who had promised her safety and had, against all odds, delivered it, Natalia felt something shift inside her chest. The wall around her heart hadn't fallen. But perhaps, just perhaps, a window had opened. Whole again, the conference room of Preston and Holloway law offices felt both intimidating and strangely empowering. Natalia sat beside Gabriel, her evidence organized in folders before them as they waited for Richard's arrival. Remember, Amira Preston, their formidable attorney, reminded her, "You only speak when addressed directly. Let me handle the rest." Gabriel's hand found hers beneath the table, a gentle squeeze of reassurance. In the 3 weeks since Richard's reappearance, their relationship had undergone a subtle transformation. The night she'd asked him to stay had broken some invisible barrier between them. Though they still maintained separate bedrooms, the connecting door now remained unlocked, a symbolic gesture of growing trust. When Richard finally strode into the room, his familiar cologne preceding him, Natalia felt her stomach clench, but not with the paralyzing fear she'd expected. Instead, she recognized the sensation as something closer to anger. Richard's confident smile faltered when he saw Gabriel beside her. "I didn't realize this was going to be a 3-ring circus." "Nat, I thought we were meeting to discuss our business matters privately." "Mr. Donovan?" Amira interjected smoothly. "As previously communicated, this meeting is to address your harassment of Mrs. Mercer and to resolve any outstanding claims you believe you have against her. Mr. Mercer is here as her husband and business partner." The term business partner made Natalia glance at Gabriel with surprise. He gave her the smallest nod, a reminder of something he'd said days earlier. "Your talents are valuable, Natalia. Not just as my wife, but as a professional in your own right." The meeting proceeded with clinical efficiency. Amira methodically dismantled each of Richard's claims while presenting evidence of his financial mismanagement and intellectual property theft. By the time she outlined the potential criminal charges that could be filed, Richard's arrogant facade had crumbled completely. "You were always so dramatic." He spat at Natalia when the proposed settlement was placed before him. "Playing the victim when all I did was try to make our business successful." Gabriel tensed beside her, but Natalia placed a restraining hand on his arm. For the first time, she addressed her ex-partner directly. "You know what's interesting, Richard? I used to think there must be something wrong with me for not appreciating your help." Her voice grew stronger with each word. "But now I see you clearly. You never wanted a partner. You wanted someone to exploit and control." Richard signed the settlement with barely concealed fury, storming out after promising never to contact her again under penalty of immediate legal action. In the car afterward, Natalia sat in stunned silence, processing the fact that the shadow that had haunted her for years had finally been vanquished. "Are you all right?" Gabriel asked softly. "I think I will be," she replied, surprising herself with the realization that she meant it. That evening, they celebrated with a quiet dinner on the terrace. As twilight descended, Gabriel presented her with an envelope. "What's this?" Natalia asked. "Open it." Inside was a certificate of incorporation for Reeves Architectural Design, along with details of office space in the city's design district. Gabriel, "I don't understand. It's a wedding gift," he said. "Somewhat delayed because I wanted to get the details right. The space is leased for 2 years, with an option to renew. The incorporation papers list you as the sole owner and principal designer." He hesitated. "Only if you want it, of course." "But your family, the company image—" "My family married me off for business stability," Gabriel interrupted gently. "They got what they wanted. Now it's your turn." He took her hand. "Unless you'd prefer to continue our original arrangement as it was." Natalia studied his face. This man who had given her space to heal, who had seen value in her when she couldn't see it herself. "What if I want something different now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Something that isn't just business?" Gabriel's eyes softened. "I've been hoping you might." That night, Natalia led Gabriel through the connecting door between their rooms. Their first true kiss was tentative, a question rather than a demand. Their second was an answer, full of newfound certainty. Later, as they lay together in the darkness, Gabriel traced the curve of her shoulder with gentle fingers. "When we first married," he confessed, "I thought we could build something comfortable. Something mutually beneficial but contained. And now," Natalia prompted, "now I find myself wanting more, wanting everything you're willing to give." He pulled back to see her face in the moonlight. "I think I've fallen in love with you, Natalia Reeves Mercer." 6 months earlier, those words would have terrified her. Now, they felt like coming home. "I think," she replied, her heart full and finally unguarded, "that makes 2 of us." Their arranged marriage had begun as a practical solution to separate problems. But what they'd built instead was something neither had dared to hope for. A partnership of equals, a sanctuary for wounded hearts, and a love that had grown not from obligation, but from the patient nurturing of possibility. Natalia curled into Gabriel's embrace, no longer broken, no longer afraid. For the first time in years, she was whole again. Not because he had fixed her, but because in the safety of his respect, she had remembered how to fix herself.